Well, hello. My name is Stephen Shankland. I'm a reporter with CNET News. I joined in 1998, the same year that Windows 98 arrived. So I've been watching the computing industry for a long time. For the last several years, I've been watching the web browser technology develop. It's been a particular focus. So this conference is very interesting to me. One thing I can't help but notice, though, is there were a lot of very impressive demos. They're all on PCs, and a lot of the action today, of course, is on these devices, and it's a lot bigger a challenge. So that's one particular focus I'm hoping to talk about today here on the panel as we move, as you know, all the development moves, not all development, but as development expands from PCs to mobile devices, I think the browser developer challenges get a lot more serious. So that's one thing we'll be focusing on. So today on our panel, I just want to introduce people briefly. We have David Rousset from Microsoft, and then we also have Satith Sudarsan from Samsung, and on the other side over here we have Dominique Hazal-Mazieu. Is that it?
Just Dom is okay.
Dom, he's from the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, which is the organization that oversees web standards. And then next we have Nicolas Silva from Mozilla, obviously one of the big browser makers. And last, from Ubisoft, we have Christian Nasser. So I think what I'd like to do just to start off, if I could hear briefly from each of you, there's one question I would like to hear. If you were talking to a developer today who is going to write a game for a mobile phone, would you advise that developer to write a web standards game that runs in a browser or web view, or would you advise the developer to write something natively for iOS or for Android? Those are the two big mobile platforms today, of course. So I don't know. Let's just perhaps start here.
Okay, to be honest, today it will depend on the type of game. If it's a 2D game, it will be okay. Depend on the complexity of the game. If it's a big game, I wouldn't recommend going directly HTML5 today with WebGL, because the WebGL support today on mobile is not as developed that on desktop, but it's coming. So it depends while you're going to ship your game. Maybe you will do a bet on the future. Up to now, I'm following a lot of games on the mobile phone and tablets, and half of the game are being developed with Unity, and a lot of the game are being developed in pure C++ with their own engine. So today, I wouldn't recommend you to, if you want to reach all of the mobile, to go HTML5. But it's the topic of this day was to show you the future, that in a soon future, I don't know when, it will be maybe 6 months and 1 year, you will have a very good support of those technology on the mobile. So maybe in the next year, I will change my mind.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I'd say, from what we've seen, I think pretty much everything is possible if we want to do it. But one thing I think the web lacks today is integrating all this and making it really easy for developers to do really high quality games. So for example, we talked about WebCL and technologies which can really give you performance and really get your 2D and 3D games running much better, but it's not easily accessible today. So what I suggest, what I think is right now probably limit your HTML5 gaming to maybe mid-core and casual gaming, and the high-end gaming probably has to wait till you have really good tools that can support those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I totally share this opinion. I think the promise of HTML5 for games, I think, is quite good. For simple games, you can already do great things. And when you look at the game market on mobile, casual is pretty strong. So I think for this type of games, the web is already ready. For higher end games with lots of 3D, for instance, as we heard a lot about today, I think clearly WebGL is coming, but it's not quite at the level of interoperability that you would expect for wide reach deployment.
Well, I think most of the really good points have been said already. I think like use the right tool for the kind of game that you want to make. If you want to make a AAA game, your options are not the same as if you want to make the kind of like Angry Bird kind of thing. The web is pretty good already for like smaller games like 1A game, if I may. But then use the right tools. The reason Unity is so popular, it's not because it's the best engine. It's because its tool chain it's just great. So the web is a great platform. Just pick the right tool for the kind of games that you want to make, and hopefully, if those tools can export to the web, it's even better. Or if they are made with the web, it's even better than even better.
Yeah, on my side, I completely agree with what you say. But I'd say that it depends first on the scope you want to target. It depends on the type of the game, and I think that if you want people to if you're an indie game developer, you in the web you'll have more opportunity maybe to reach people with just a link on Facebook, on any social network. But if you are like a AAA developer, it's maybe easier to use a classic market like iOS or Android, because you'll have the visibility as a big publisher.
How much of the constraints on web programming, if you're writing a web game, how much of the constraints are the performance and the abilities of the device, and how much of it are the developer tools? I don't know if anybody wants to chime in.
I'm not exactly sure I understood which developer tool you meant. You mean like game engines like Unity?
What's the limiting factor? Is it the performance of the devices, the performance and the ability of the devices, or is it the actual difficulty of writing the code?
So it's true that writing very efficient code with WebGL is not simple. Using 3D, using the GPU is something that the game industry has been very good at since the invention of the GPU, but the web industry doesn't have that kind of experience, so it depends on your background. I know that it's really hard to write efficient 3D games and use the GPU properly, and also if you want, the mobile space is kind of hard because you have a lot of different hardware from the very, very low end to the very high end, and that's once again it's a matter of specking, dimensioning. Use the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, Microsoft 2 weeks ago, I was in Barcelona. I saw the debut of this 128 megabyte RAM mobile phone with costs $25. Clearly, if your runtime alone is 256 megabytes, that's not going to work. But there's a huge spectrum of capability in the phones. Maybe perhaps a question also for Nicolas. ASM.js, it's very interesting. We saw a lot of demos here that use it, but I don't detect any enthusiasm beyond Mozilla for it in the browser, among the browser makers. What's it going to take to change that, and to because if you're a developer writing ASM.js, it's not going to run very well unless the browser is optimized for it. So although it's technically compatible, it's not really useful. So what's it going to take to get the other browser makers on board?
So I'd like to, so first, Chrome and Opera joined the adventure. They're optimizing for ASM.js as well. And not exactly the same way Firefox does it, but they have some pretty good performance on some pretty heavy demos, like the Unreal Citadel demo. And a great thing with ASM.js is that it generates code that is actually very, very easy to optimize. And so even if you don't have if you don't optimize for ASM.js, chances are that if you use a JIT compiler, which is pretty much required if you want to have good JavaScript performance today, ASM.js is going to work very well, actually, because it's very, very easy to JIT. It was not designed to be super fast in Firefox because that's how Firefox works. It's more like, oh, this is the subset of JavaScript that is very efficient. And that can be efficiently optimized if you stick into this spec. So at the end of the day, it's even better if you can optimize for ASM.js directly, because you can, there are a few tricks in there. But if you don't, you still have normally better performance than handwritten JavaScript.
David, do you have any thoughts about Microsoft and ASM.js? I have seen the Unreal Citadel demo on ASM.js. We now have the the Unreal Engine 4 demo as well in ASM.js. That's nice. But what about Internet Explorer?
Well, to my personal point of view, I think that ASM.js is really interesting. I've been watching how it works to optimize our own engine on Babylon.js, because it's really based on how the JavaScript engine works, and you can optimize some of your own JavaScript code in the way they're doing it, but it's much more complex to do on the global engine. I know that some of the people at Microsoft have looked to ASM.js. Today, I don't know if it's something in our plan. I really don't know. So I've got to ask to our product teams, but I know that people, of course, have watched it, and now as always, we need to put some priorities on that.
Is there some way of accomplishing what ASM.js can do, but without ASM.js? Do you know?
Could you say that again?
Is there some way of accomplishing the goals of ASM.js some other way, or is it?
Well, depends. Not really. The problem is that every virtual machine has its own way to optimize the code. So Google, Mozilla, Microsoft, we all have some specific algorithms, and we are better in some area and less better in some other. So for instance, I know how to write my JavaScript code specifically to be optimized in the VM of IE, because I know some people working on that, and I know that this pattern will be better in IE. That's why most of the time benchmark are not really interested, because they are made by the vendors and they really know how to optimize for their own engine. But ASM.js try to do that in a more generic way, interesting way. So I would say that point by point, maybe you can optimize some of your code, but if you want to, as we've seen with Minko, switch from 1 million line of code in C++ to JavaScript, well, I think that a normal human is not able to do that. That's why we've built some tools.
Speaking of new standards, perhaps one for Dominique. There's been a widespread criticism, of course, I think for decades, about standards, the creation of standards in the technology industry. It takes a long time to build the consensus, to get everybody to agree on one approach. But in mobile especially, where you have Android and iOS moving forward rapidly, it's difficult for the standards groups to keep up. And do you think that the web standards will ever catch up to the native platforms when it comes to mobile specifically?
So will they catch up overall? Like, will you find every single feature of both iOS and Android in the web platform? I would say probably not, because as the web keeps evolving, iOS and Android keeps evolving, and the web tries to be a universal platform, so you can't have a feature that is specific to a single platform and call it a web feature, at least from my perspective. And my role in WCC is to manage how the web is being used on mobile devices. So this question is basically what I struggle with on a daily basis. And my perspective is that where we need to bring the web is at a place where sufficiently many use cases are possible using web technologies, that the incredible benefits you get from the web, for instance, the fact that it's multi-platform, that it is reachable through links that you can easily share on social networks and so on. Once you have sufficiently many features with sufficient performance on mobile devices, then at the end of the day, it remains a trade-off whether you want to go native or web, and everyone will get a different answer. But my goal, my role in WCC is to make sure that the trade-off is not too badly balanced for the web, basically. So get the set of critical features that developers want to develop most of their applications.
So you don't need to have everything, you just need to have enough that you have critical mass of developers.
Yeah, and as you say, many people say standardization is slow, and you guys, what do you do? I mean, when you look at the fact that the web is, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the web 2 days ago, and for the, I would say, first 10 or 15 years, the web was mostly a document platform. So we are in the 10th year of the web as an application platform, and we've seen some stuff that is quite amazing for in that context. And so yes, some of the consensus finding and some of the development of features is slow, but it also features that get deployed to billions of devices seamlessly. So I mean, I guess again, it's a matter of a trade-off. Yes, you do need a bit more time to get these features in, but once you have them in, you get a reach that you can't get anywhere else.
You mentioned I think one of the most interesting promises of the web, which is this universal platform. So it runs on televisions and mobile phones and PCs and your car and whatever gets a web browser tomorrow. But perhaps, Satish, I wonder what you think about this. Is it really universal? You might have one browser that supports web audio and the others don't. WebGL isn't supported everywhere yet, certainly not in mobile. Is it actually universal enough that you can use it, or is that ever going to be fixed, where you have different features in different browsers and different levels of performance?
Yeah, and I think some of the advances will always, for example, we do work on Tizen, and Tizen we try to be completely web-centric and web-friendly, so we can build. But again, right, when we optimize and try to make it a leading-edge platform, we always will have features and other things that we will try on the platform which differentiate and try to move the platform forward, right? But eventually, I think standardization will catch up and make it much more available everywhere else. And I agree, I think browsers and browser vendors do make their own decisions on which features and which not, but the most popular ones, I think the decision is mostly business, right? So if there's enough acceptance in the community where people want it, the browser vendors will do it, right? And given that, I think the most popular, one of the most important features do make it where you can do, for example, Tizen's supposed to be running in all the different types of devices that anybody would want to make, right, as an open platform. And certainly, I think the goal is enable everything possible from web standpoint so that it can do so.
So what are the top APIs, the top interfaces that you think are missing today from the web platform? What do you think would improve web gaming the most if they arrived over the next year or so? Is it multi-threading? Is it send support perhaps also? You might want to weigh in here. Also, Nicolas, given Firefox OS, which is trying to add a lot of new interfaces for mobile phone hardware. So. What are the interface? And I'd be interested to hear from other people too. But what interfaces does the web platform need most critically right now for web gaming?
I think WebGL is essential. The Canvas Studio was not designed to be a game, like something to render games at all. It was designed to render, like calendar widgets and stuff like this. So right now, a lot of people write games in Canvas 2D because it's well deployed. But if you want to reach like really great performance, Canvas 2D is really not the best way to do the job. So WebGL for me is extremely important. Web audio is also very important because audio latency in a game is crucial. And it was said earlier today, like if you're in this shooting game and you start shooting and the sound comes like half a second later, it feels horrible. So there's this, and I think whatever the game designer needs as input for the game is going to need to be in there. So if it's on the mobile phone, some way to do inputs properly, we already probably have that. I'm not so much of a web developer myself. I think, 3D graphics with WebGL and 2D graphics with WebGL. WebGL is not only for 3D, and audio is just the base. And then I think we need to improve on workers and ways to make things more parallel. And there are things in the pipes in this area. Maybe Ubisoft.
Daniel Glasman, perhaps you wanted to add something about threading or workers?
Just as a programmer, I would like to add two things. First, WebRTC, because we really need for for multi-user programming, and the second screen experience. When you're in your living room working, gaming on your iPad or your Samsung tablet, and you want to display something on your TV, you have to have a connection between your TV set and your mobile device, and this is absolutely needed.
So just to react quickly on this, so obviously WebRTC is in development and is getting deployed. There is also early work on a second screen API, and so hopefully that will also arrive in browsers soon enough, and we'll also get that seamless experience from one device to the other.
David, why, I'm not sure if you can answer this, if you can speak for the team, but why doesn't Internet Explorer support WebRTC? And why did it take so long to support WebGL? When WebGL first came out, there was a lot of noise from Microsoft about how it's this terrible security risk. Oh, don't go there. And then 2 years later, it's in. So what happened there and with WebGL, and what will happen with WebRTC? For those who don't know, WebRTC is real-time communications. It's like voice over IP, peer-to-peer connections. You can set up audio, video, and data channels between two machines.
Okay, so I will answer at least at half of your question. So let me just add something to the previous question, and I would be interested by Ubisoft that point of view of the current limitation. As a member of the Babylon GS team, the main problem we have currently to optimize the performance when you build a game is around physics and all of things linked to multi-threading you've got in C++, and the web worker are just really not made to make that. I don't know really why they are here, to be honest, because they're really useless. And so we need something better. So today we have some good initiative like WebAudio, WebRTC, and we are working also on experimenting it. So we have some online demo of HTML5 labs, the way we are testing our technologies. And I don't know about the next version IE, but let's hope so. For WebGL, it's true that we had identified a real security problem, meaning that on specific case with specific shaders, you can have problem and have some freeze of the machines. So on our side, we fix that by the way the shaders are working in IE, that we're taking the GLSL shaders language and we are transcoding that in HLSL, which is some DirectX, and we don't have security problem on that. So we are first doing that, then we are scanning the shaders before compiling it and executing it. So we have put some security mechanisms in IE 11 because security is something that we are really concerned about, Microsoft, for several years now. So this is the way we fix it. And now there was also, as you were saying, Satish, well, a feature is super cool on the web. You can be the only one not to have it because at the end of the day, people will stop using your browser. So it's really a way, if you, as user, want to push something in the browser, use it, use a lot of demos and say that Firefox got it, so that's why I'm using Firefox all the day, and you will start to stress the other browser vendors.
Christian, is there anything you want to add? I know you're actually writing an engine right now, so you probably have a good feeling of what's needed and not needed.
Yeah, so just to make things clear, I'm not much of a web developer, so sorry about that. But I think there are some very important things, like to make your app depending on the device you are. Like, I think we need some things to check, like the configuration, the GPU, the CPU consumption of the device, and a lot of things with the touch inputs. It's I think it's a kind of missing APIs on the web. So
yeah, there's I think the transformation moving from Flash to web apps on the PC is much more straightforward in part than it is in mobile because of the touch interface issue. How mature is touch and the web right now? Because clearly, when people are playing little casual games on their phones, touch is really essential. Is it mature enough to use now? Microsoft has had some interesting work there, but what do you think?
So as David explained this morning, there has been two standards in this space, the touch event and the pointer events, the latter one being the one proposed by Microsoft, and I think the one that is now possibly taking the lead as being the solution.
It looks that way to me. Pointer events one.
Basically, what it means is that with touch events and pointer events, you can do basically whatever you want in terms of touch interactions. One issue that has been a problem for many developers has been the lag that you get in some interactions due to some legacy behaviors on mobile browsers, where you have these 300 milliseconds delays between the time you click and the response from the browser. There are now workarounds for this, which are fairly well understood, and there are even proposed standard solutions to this that are also upcoming. So I would say, from my perspective, that currently touch is no longer really an issue for mobile games. You can get through it.
Another problem area has been offline sport. We heard about the difficulties of caching assets. There's been a lot of teeth gnashing and hair pulling about offline, some of the standards that have been developed so far not being adequate. So how well is offline developing? Perhaps we could hear from Nicolas or David or.
Unfortunately, my area of expertise is graphics.
That's okay.
So I can't answer this question. Sorry.
To be honest, maybe I don't have to say that with WC3C member here, but the offline APIs are far from being the best thing we've got from the web standards. The offline API itself is not really great. But it's do most of the job when you are able to do it. And we've got indexed DB, so we had 2 DBs, and then we only have one that succeed. So in our engine, we've tried to have a solution on that. There are still some issues. For instance, for the assets, if you want to store your asset of the game as blob, the image, we're storing image as a blob in the DB. It works in Firefox and IE. It wasn't working in Chrome. So this is still the problem of having several different levels of support. But you can start to save some assets on the disk, because even if Chrome don't have the blob storage in IndexedDB, it's a bit technical, I'm sorry, you can have some file system APIs to have fallbacks. So you can have some fallbacks library to do that. So today you can have a form of offline storage. But well, I think that Jean-Marc was right. The main problem is the first login. So if you are downloading 100 megabytes, the first time you're loading the game, most of the people will go away. So the main problem is really have access immediately to the game and start something that's moving on the screen.
Just a couple of comments on offline. So as everybody is saying, application cache has not been the most successful API out there.
Everybody hates it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I hate it. So.
Everybody.
IndexedDB clearly provides the first fallback solution. There is a new spec under development called Service Worker that will also hopefully simplify a lot of these operations. Another issue that people face when going offline and trying to cache assets and so on, especially for games which have very large assets, is that if you don't have enough space granted by the browser, then basically you're stuck. So we have another API that is under development to facilitate this, but that remains, I think, a point of pain for developers for offline.
So I've been complaining about various standards and shortcomings, but obviously the web is a tremendous thing. Perhaps, Satish, could you talk about what some of the advantages are of using the web as the platform? Why go through the difficulties with the APIs, the difficulties with the tooling? There's obviously an advantage. What do you think are the big reasons? Is it connecting to the cloud? Is it the universality, so you get natural cross-platform benefits? Could you talk about what Samsung likes about it?
Yeah, I think web today, even when you do multiple platforms on it, it's not quite straightforward or as easy as you would think for a cross-platform type of environment. But it's better than doing native applications completely for multiple different platforms and maintaining and supporting them over the long period of time. And I think as the web standards mature, the hope is that the amount of effort that people have to put in to support various devices and the images that they have to support for high computation versus low computation devices goes away and significantly reduces, and there's a lot of reusability. So that's one of the reasons I think Tizen as a platform has been focused on that and trying to resolve that as a problem and trying to provide that layer. Though native, of course, has its advantages today, and slowly, I think, as we're seeing, ASM.js and a lot of other tools are trying to get the performance gap closed.
Anybody else want to weigh in on some of the big picture advantages of web technologies? And it's probably some preaching to the choir here, but I suspect there are a lot of native developers as well who might need convincing.
I can give one argument: the size of the community. For one for one Android developer, you have 4 iOS developers, and for one iOS developer, you have 5 web developers. So you have 20 times more web developers than, for instance, iOS developers. The world is full of people knowing the web and the web technologies.
How many of those are developing something very complex and interactive like a game versus something relatively static like a web
Take a look at
document?
GitHub. It's full of very complex JavaScript and HTML projects. Some of them are crucial to companies like us. We are using them all the time.
David?
Well, as a personal point of view, maybe not a Microsoft one, but I guess also why we work on Babylon.js is because we really think that the web is the next frontier for the game. And today, what you can do, for instance, could be starting to showcase part of your game in the browser and let people playing the first level or doing a companion app or something like that. And then you can engage in a second way on the mobile, on the stores. And maybe in 1 year, you will be able to have the full experience in the browser. But today, thanks to the web, you're able to touch much more people than classical apps. That's why I think that Promise, again, is really interesting, and that's why we're believing in that for the future of gaming.
How about synchronizing with the cloud in some way, perhaps with leaderboards, or is it more natural to have a game that has a connection to the cloud?
Well, it sort of feels more natural for the user because, like, if it's a web game that's actually on the website, he's already kind of like accessing a website, talking to a server. So it's less annoying than when you're playing your game, like on your, I don't know, PC, and suddenly your game tries to access the internet, and sometimes it feels kind of like, oh, I don't want you to go to the internet. But like when you're on the website, well. For the user, it makes it like a slight difference, but like for a development point of view, for like development experience, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. But I might have different experience than others in this area. I don't know.
We've heard a lot about ASM.js today, which is one way to get C and C++ apps into a browser. Another one that's a possibility is native client. Google isn't here to stick up for itself. It's got a good marketing department, though. So I'd like to hear what other people here think about native client. Is it a good idea? Is it a sound approach? Or is it a problem because it fragments the web by introducing a whole new runtime? Perhaps, Christian, you'd like to?
I think it's a very good opportunity, like, because it brings, like, it can allow us to be more creative, to build new games. So new games, and I think it's the same as ASM.js. It's a very interesting topics, and we should focus on those.
Is it easier to use if you have a game engine that's written in C or C++? Is it easier to do the port with Inscripton and ASM.js, or is it easier to do it with native client? Do you have any opinions?
It seems that Inscripton works pretty well, so I think it might be quite easier to port the C++ into JS, maybe. I don't know.
Nicola, any thoughts? Mozilla does not support native client.
Lots of thoughts about this. As a browser implementer, I really got really scared when we add like new big APIs, and adding an API is already something that then you're responsible for maintaining it for the next 50 years. So you don't do that lightly, and that's one of the good side effect of the fact that the standardization process is not like super fast, right? Adding a language, like an entire runtime, and the language is even worse. So I think that if there is a solution that involves not adding an entire runtime and a new language, we should take this solution, and so Mozilla responded to a native client with ASM.js, which is trying to solve basically the same problem, but solves it in a much less intrusive way for implementers, and that doesn't double the size of, like, the web platform as a technological piece of software. So I think that we've proved that from a performance point of view, from a developer experience point of view, and from an adoption point of view, ASM.js solved all the problems that that people had, and that motivated Google to create native client and do it in I think a better way, and a way that is more like the web.
David, perhaps you'd like to weigh in?
Well, I'm now old enough to remind that IE6 was the best browser, maybe 10 years ago, maybe. And it really reminds me, but maybe I'm wrong, even if it's not exactly the same technical thing about our ActiveX things in IE. And I know that, as we said, we know that it's really long to standardize and create some standards, but we know that after that everybody can implement that. And it could be funny to hear that from Microsoft, but now our direction is to have something, a plugin-free web. So, well, it's more like, it's like a plugin in a native client, so it really locked down the code to Google Chrome and then to Google. So, to my point of view, it's not something we'd like to go in, and I much more prefer SM.js, as at least it worked in my browser, than a native client.
I have other questions, but I wanted to make sure if people in the audience had questions, just raise your hand, and I think Daniel can carry the mic around.
Yes, beyond the entertainment, do you think that the Web 3D will be a massive adoption for serious gaming and furthermore for web design in general?
I'm sorry, could you ask that one more time, I think?
Yes. Beyond the entertainment, do you think that the 3D in the web will be a massive adoption for serious gaming and web design in general?
So will 3D on the web exist beyond just games, basically? Christian?
Well, I think that it's perfectly suited for serious gaming and like game design tests, for example. Because, for example, if you take Babylon.js, you can see the hard demo. It's kind of look like a serious game, and most of the time you just want to test quickly your game and see like the result directly. And I think for this purpose it's quite good. And often serious games are not very big AAA games, so like web is a good platform for this. And also it can reach many people.
There is also, a pretty big usage of 3D technologies in the industrial space, like to document a factory or to build an engine, you would build a 3D model. And if you can do that in your browser, then suddenly it's part of your documentation infrastructure. For instance, it's no longer this thing that lives beyond your traditional intranet ecosystem. So, I guess we do live in a 3D world, and we can easily imagine that being able to represent it and interact with a 3D version of this world in the web can bring a lot of new ideas. We've also heard, I think, and maybe seen some augmented reality demos where you can add 3D objects in your camera views, for instance. That's probably not only for gaming either.
I think there was a question in
Yeah,
the
there was
middle
a second
also.
question.
Okay, so first, this may be a dumb question, so I'm not sure, but I'm not sure I understand the concept of ISM.js. So correct me if I'm wrong. So this is a subset of JavaScript. So this is basically a set of rules that you have to follow. And if you follow these rules, your code is guaranteed to be well optimized by the JIT. So is it correct, or am I?
Correct so far.
Okay. And ECMAScript 10 is a LLVM backend that's supposed to convert bytecode into JavaScript. Is it right?
Well, yeah, ECMAScript 10 takes as input LLVM intermediate representation and outputs JavaScript. Yeah, and then it integrates with C++, but yeah, I'm just rephrasing what you just said to make sure that we're on the same page. I think we are.
Yes, okay. Okay, so but basically, if I'm writing a JavaScript application today, I can just follow the ISM.js rules to be sure my code will be would run fast on.
Yes, although those rules are very, very restrictive, which makes it really hard to handwrite an entire application using ASM.js by hand, although some people have done it. Very few, though. One thing that is worth noting is that since ASM.js is JS, you can write parts of your application using ASM, and the rest using, like normal JS, and just optimize what needs to be optimized. For instance, if you want to use Box2D, the Emscripten version of Most2D is the fastest available today, and by very far. And you don't need to write the rest of your application with Emscripten and ASM if you want to use this Emscripten version of Box2D. So.
Down in the front.
Another one on ISM.js. I was thinking, what about JavaScript to JavaScript? So you got JavaScript as input, you got JS docs, so you got all the static typing. You do some static analysis of your JavaScript, you send that to Emscripten, and you are able to output ISM.js. Is this completely crazy, or is this possible in future? Or would it be interesting to do?
The idea of parsing your JavaScript and generating better JavaScript is definitely not a crazy idea. What's really hard about it is that JavaScript is a language that is very, very flexible and lets you do a lot of things. And the semantics of the language doesn't encourage you to give enough information so that the compiler or that whatever tool you're talking about can
JSDoc has the main advantage of giving you all the typing. If it is statically typed, for example, you can have that directly in JSDoc.
In JSDoc?
JSDoc,
okay.
like...
oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean...
Doxygen, yes, that you want.
There are, like, and it's true with every languages. Like, you can probably write a tool that takes some... the code that you write and generates better code because humans make mistakes, and sometimes tools make mistakes, and it's a trade-off. You're gonna hit probably a wall at some point where without restricting you to a very efficient subset of the language, you can't optimize further because the tools don't have any clue what you're actually trying to do with your code.
Thanks.
Another question, we talked about native client. There's another Google language out there, Dart, which is designed to improve on some of the perceived shortcomings of JavaScript, such as dynamic typing, which is not always desirable, and large-scale projects where you have many developers working on the same project. There's also another alternative, Haxi, which Daniel mentioned to me the other day. I hadn't just learned about that. What do you guys think about adding an alternative to JavaScript to the browser? Should we just concentrate on improving JavaScript, or would we actually benefit from addressing its shortcomings?
I think Microsoft tried that. It was called VBScript, and I don't know that it was a huge success. I mean, I think anything about the web is about scale, and it's already completely amazing that we have this language deployed on, again, more than 1 billion devices. On any of these devices, connected devices, you can start a browser, start writing JavaScript code, and it runs. And I would be the first to recognize that JavaScript comes with a lot of shortcomings, and some of them are being addressed with new version of the language. Some of that probably cannot be addressed because of all the legacy. But I think the challenge of deploying a completely new language is so big that it has to come with a lot of benefits to actually be manageable by browser vendors, devices manufacturers, and so on. So I mean, I certainly have no opposition to getting a better language to such a scale of deployment, but the cost of getting such a scale of deployment is tremendous.
Well, there was a lot of debates at Microsoft on how to handle the JavaScript problems, because now it hasn't been designed to be used that way for very large application. So there was some different approaches. There was JWT that was generating from Java, and well, this is not the best approach also. And in the way we are trying to address that at Microsoft is using, I don't know if you know it, it's TypeScript, which embrace JavaScript and try to extend it and stay compatible because it's going to generate JavaScript and use JavaScript. And it just lets you test the future of JavaScript with ECMAScript 6, going to solve many problems, not all problems, because the language itself has some architecture problems. But still, I guess that it's not possible to replace JavaScript and to create a new language. Maybe I will be wrong in the future, but as you said, there are so many devices using it. I can't see how to replace that by a marvelous new language. So you've got to live with that and improve JavaScript and maybe TypeScript, test it, tell me what you think. But most of the web developer, even if it's coming from Microsoft, said that it's not that bad. So have a look to it.
And
Christian, do you want to add?
I think that the more there are new technologies, the more it gets challenging for older technologies to get improved. So maybe it's not a good idea to create like a new language or something, but if this can improve JavaScript to get better than Dart, if maybe Dart gets
So
better.
It's a good incentive to improve JavaScript.
So maybe that will be a good thing.
Did you want to add, Daniel?
yeah, I would like to add one thing. I don't see browser vendors adding a new VM because of the size, because of the sandboxing problem, the security issues, the maintenance issues. That's the first thing. And second thing, for Google to make all the other browser vendors adopt Dart, that will require to reach a massive penetration of the market, but they are not there yet.
Yeah, well, I think just having talked to Google about this, they are willing to put in the extra virtual machine for it. So we'll see how well Chrome.
Yeah, some people at Google are not happy with Dart.
Yes,
You have to know that.
We'll see how that shapes up. But I don't detect any enthusiasm among the browser makers outside Dart. So I think at least at this stage, it's not going to spread. Did you want to add something, Nicolas? You don't have to, but if you.
I was just going to say that once again, if we want to add something as big as a new language to the web, it needs to solve real problems that there is no way to solve with JavaScript. And I haven't been convinced that Dart is the right approach, because I think that we can build on top of JavaScript things that are that solve those problems. And I think we've proved once again with like compilation to JavaScript that we can have the safety guarantees and strong type systems and efficient code running on the client.
So what do you think about perhaps adding support for TypeScript, which might be a signal of things to come in future JavaScript? It's supposed to be easier to handle large projects and the static typing issues. What do you think?
So I actually don't know TypeScript very well, but I just heard that it was built on top of JavaScript and would be sort of an evolution of JavaScript. And that definitely sounds like a better approach to me. But I really don't know much about it, so I don't want to. Sure. Well, yeah, I want to hear about this. Like,
It's
let's check that
super.
offline. I'll ask you about this later. But I mean, we should build on top of JavaScript. That's all I'm saying.
Also, I'm curious about a general architectural issue as we move to games on the web. Is it better for developers to learn how to program with GPU technologies or CPU technologies? And a related question, what's going to happen with WebCL? The Kronos group is trying to establish WebCL as a sort of a web version of OpenCL, so you can run arbitrary programs on the GPU. But I don't think any browser company I've talked to is at all enthusiastic. So where should programmers be writing, and what do you think about WebCL? And if you want to weigh in here, Satish, that would be fine on the website, or anybody else.
Yeah, and I think as we talked about, so WebCL addresses a little bit different set of problems than WebGL, and the graphics and compute are complementary, so obviously they can coexist, and it's needed for good gaming experience. As far as browser vendors are concerned, I think what we sort of presented was also the timelines that WebGL took, going from when it was released into the wild to when it was standardized. It does take time and a little bit of adoption, and that's one of the things that we're interested in, where people who are early adopters and really wanting to take advantage of it in high-end gaming can start off, and that's exactly how WebGL and other things came about. So we expect the same kind of trajectory to go forward.
So you think everybody will support WebCL at some point?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do our job in terms of Kronos Group and everybody else to make sure it's a standard that's viable and it has a lot of advantages and use cases. And if the use cases are there, and we have discovered plenty of them in gaming and outside of gaming, we think that those benefits are going to tell the story themselves.
Browser implementers have a lot of stuff on their plates. So there is a lot of stuff that we're asked to add to the web, and so much we can do in a day. And so usually when things receive a strong push from the industry, it makes it much more likely for us to add it to the web and to add implementation and work hard on the sorry?
Who's the industry? Somebody who makes
like
devices or developers?
Sorry, the industry. I was implying the game industry, but any industry that want to take part of the standardization process and push for these things. Basically, if we feel that there is a need for something, then we're going to be much more likely to add it if we think that it's a good thing for the web. And also, it's an interesting time for OpenCL because the previous generation of consoles didn't have GPU capabilities, and the current one, the new one that just arrived, does. And I suspect that this is going to push people to use OpenCL, CUDA, and the likes much more on the PC, and it will make adoption of OpenCL better and easier because we're going to get better drivers and more knowledge, more people skilled in this area, and probably more people interested in using it on the web as well.
Can we afford to add all these new interfaces to browsers? We have mobile devices that are already severely hardware constrained. We're going to be moving into wearable devices that are, that make a low-end cell phone look, super powerful. So, can we afford to put all these new interfaces into browsers, given the hardware constraints at the low end? Should we be concentrating on optimizing what we have? Perhaps David?
Well, on WebCL, I'm really not the expert on that, so I really don't know what our strategy. But as you just said, we know all the broader vendors, we still have a lot of job optimizing our performance on the mobile space. So it's true that we've got a lot of things to do, and there's a lot of very cool specification. Well, Dom knows about them, device APIs, WebRTC. There's so much to do that maybe are more interesting for the mass that the gamer. I guess that most of the people are not gamer or want to play HTML5 games. That's probably why the broader vendor first will concentrate their effort on remaining APIs rather than focusing on that. But I think this is very interesting because as a gamer now, as a game making game engine, I know that we won't be able to go much more farther if we don't have access to more powerful APIs because we are mono-threaded by default on the UI thread, and this is something that is really too blocking for game makers.
Do you want to add, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one reason why WebCL, or I mean, in general, access to computation in the GPU might gain broader appeal to broader vendors is if it solves other problems than just gaming. And clearly GPUs are good at parallel calculation, which is also something that is getting big due to big data and all this stuff. So I have absolutely no knowledge about when and whether WebCL will be adopted, but I do see the need for getting better performances in mobile web browsers, and part of this is getting access to is tapping in the hardware acceleration that GPU provides. So.
Is there one more question from the audience? Yes? Then we have to wrap it up, I'm afraid.
You all keep talking about performance issues, but as well you have showed us that we can do good demos despite the performances problem. So I'm wondering why today, when I see the Hill Valley demo and we can walk through after it's been optimized with the talk we've seen earlier, I'm wondering why we don't see real games. I mean, maybe FPS games, with a
it's true that today on the desktop, at least, we've got enough power to have some
at least
great
on
games
desktop, yes.
on desktop. And I usually say to people that you've got the power of an Xbox 360 on some PCs, even in the browser, so you can build some great games. The problem is how you're going to make some money with your game, because so maybe you can there is some models. So just the problem the game studio are telling me. So they are going to make some money, so there is some solution for that. And they are a bit afraid about how to protect my assets and my IP in the browser. So this is the main problem. This is not anymore a performance problem.
If we are talking about an open source game, for example, maybe it's a bunch of really passionate people that they want to do a great game just for free, not for money.
Yes, the problem
why
is
we don't see that?
The problem, you
desktop?
cannot be better than Ubisoft, even if you are very motivated. You need some.
Maybe this is a question for Christian, because he's a native game developer, and my question is: are you interested in WebGL development, game development?
As a person, I'm very interested in this, but the
Do
thing
you know
is
people
that
working on the WebGL games today?
currently we are keeping an eye on these technologies, because maybe some days there will be interesting regarding the revenues, but it's like David says, it's like the market law, like it's the offer and demand. You cannot create a web-based game if there is nobody who can play it. See, and about the performance issue, I think that like the demos that you've seen today are very small-scale projects, and if you want to have a AAA running on the web, it's much more complicated, because you have like thousands of assets, complex 3D models, real-time rendering, and all of this takes a lot of time to load and a lot of time to compute on CPU.
Even a small 2.5D platform game, for example, like Rayman or something?
No, I think for this kind of game it's appropriate, but
I don't know. I think maybe in all kind of domains in the web, you can see really passionate people doing it for fun, for free. And I'm wondering why there is no amazing adventure game on the web for free. It's just I'm just asking myself why.
So why it's about money? It's just about money. and protection, and it will come soon, I guess. I think we've got a game based on SMGS at an Unreal Engine that's been shipped. No,
Yeah, that
So
was a game
we can
released
talk about
by
that.
Trendy Entertainment, based on the Unreal Engine. There- I heard
one moment.
something that is true. Like, say it again.
Perhaps the game developer needs tools and not just engines.
Yeah, that's
And a lot of people can make games on desktop without real coding skills, using, for example, Unity or Game Maker or stuff like this.
So I think that's a very good point. Making games, like what's really important here, to make games is the tool chain that you have, and engineers like me, that we don't make games, we make technologies, and then artists make games with those technologies. Yes. And I can't make a game by myself. I've tried many times, like a AAA game. We're talking AAA here, right? Really, I think like 3 years ago when WebGL was kind of the new hot thing, everybody was showing off its new engine, and there was no tool chain, and it was like, no, please make tool chains. And now we have a few. The Unreal Engine has its own tool chain. It's not the favorite tool chain for the the indie community, but like more stuff is coming. And also, there is the fact that making AAA games costs a lot of money. And so I think that as long as we haven't proved that there's a lot of money to make on the web, big companies like Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, or the likes, they haven't told me that personally, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to wait, that there is a proof that their investment is going to be worth it. So right now it's up to us to prove that you can make money on the web making AAA game. We're proving that the technology is there. Now we kind of need to prove that the market is there as well.
So as a last question, I would like to add one thing. Usually, so the question was about open source games. Usually open source is created by software engineers, and usually software engineers are barely able to draw an icon. Even a few bits and a few pixels, they're unable to do that. So it's a good answer.
Last question there.
I think there is a lot of new API. For instance, the Gamepad API. There is the WebAudio API, which are very designed for games. Why are you doing games specifically? Is it because you're working with studios, or are you doing it for game developers or something?
So the web audio API was developed because the web needed an audio API in general. I think it has evolved to be a pretty good one for gaming, but the fact of being able to produce and analyze sounds is something that clearly the web had for quite some time, especially with the arrival of the audio tag in HTML5. The Gamepad API is obviously a lot more oriented towards game development. And I guess it's one of these cases that David alluded to earlier. Once browser vendors hear enough demand for a particular API, then they surface it in the relevant standard organization. And if enough other browser vendors are interested, then work gets started and the API is standardized. And that's what's happened with the Gamepad API. So it's really a reflection of what we in WCC and browser vendors here as being needed for the web today.
Okay, well, thanks so much for coming, everybody. Could you just give a little round of applause for our panelists? I think they did very well.